Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, welcome to Eagle Point Funding's webinar Department of Defense Small Business Grant on Human Systems, due October 24th. I'll be today's presenter, Over Hamel. I'm the Director of Marketing and Sales Support here at Eagle Point Funding. Here's my contact information with my email and my phone number. If you need to reach out to me, feel free anytime. Okay, so we'll begin our discussion of today's topic of SBIR, STTR, DoD grants upcoming in October by giving you a quick overview of how SBIR, STTR works, and then we'll get into more nitty-gritty about the topics for human systems today, halfway through the webinar. Should be about 25 minutes long, so bear with me while I go through this introduction, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty pretty soon. So, for anyone who isn't familiar with it, the SBIR program stands for Small Business Innovation Research, and then there's a sister program called the Small Business Technology Transfer Program. These are the foundational small business grant opportunities available to small businesses. For anyone looking to get their feet wet in the federal grant world, these are the two standard grant mechanisms used to apply for federal funding. Just to give you a little more background, the SBIR and STTR programs support R&D and financing of cutting-edge technologies. Close to $2.5 billion are set aside annually for these two programs. SBIR programs have awarded over $43 billion to research-intensive American small businesses to date, with over close to 160,000 awards granted. Just to give you a little bit more background on the STTR program, which is the sister program of SBIR. The STTR program is for anyone looking to partner with a research institution. So the SBIR program doesn't involve any partnering with a research institution. And is kind of like your bread and butter, simple grant for small businesses that you would do on your own. But if you wanted to partner with a research institution or a university, you would apply through the STTR program, which is a smaller sister program with a 0.4% budget of the extramural research budget available, which is about a little over $250 million. It's grown to about 0.45% around now, so it's a little larger than $250 million. And there are fewer participating agencies in the STTR program. There's only agencies that have a budget greater than $1 billion participate in the STTR program. I'll go through a little more detail on that pretty soon. Okay, so what are the four goals of the SBIR STTR program? Number one, meet federal research and development needs. Number two, increase private sector commercialization of innovation derived from federal research and development funding. Three, stimulate technological innovation. And four, foster and encourage participation in innovation and entrepreneurship by socially and economically disadvantaged persons. These are kind of the overriding principles and goals of the SBIR STTR program. In short, the Small Business Innovation Research awards are trying to help stimulate the U.S. economy and bring small federal grants to small businesses trying to grow their businesses. Okay, so now I'll go a little bit into the numbers for funding available through these programs. There are three phases in SBIR and STTR. We're going to focus here specifically on SBIR, assuming that you're not partnering with a research institution. For phase one, the grant sizes are typically $150,000 for the course of 6 months. For phase two, it's about $1 million for the course of 2 years. And for phase three, it's focused on commercialization, not SBIR funded. There is an award usually of about $1 million as well for phase three, but it's more commercialization focused. And please note that from phase one to phase two to phase three, you need to win successive awards. I mean, you can't jump straight to phase two or phase three. You need to win phase one to receive and to apply for and receive phase two, and the same with 2 to 3. If you wanted to try to win a larger grant size, like $1 million, you still need to apply for and win the first phase one in order to get to that possibility. Okay, so now I'll give you a little more background on the specific DoD SBIR program. We're going to wrap up this part of the overview of SBIR. For anyone who's more familiar with it, I apologize if it's a little slow, and then we'll jump into the topics pretty soon. So the DoD has 3 annual SBIR announcements with due dates on February, June, and October. Today we're talking about the October deadline. The October deadline is this 24th, and over half of the annual SBIR budget comes from the DoD, or about $1 billion. So, like I mentioned, the total budget's about $2.5 billion, and the DoD is the largest player in the small business space. Of all the departments, it really gives out the most money, so there's a lot going on in lieu of the upcoming deadline. Okay, so a couple stats on who wins these grants and how much the DoD is willing to give out to who. Over half the awards are to firms with fewer than 25 people. A third of awards are to firms of fewer than 10 people, and a fifth are to minorities or women-owned businesses. A little background now on the agencies participating in the SBIR program, just to get to know all the different agencies quickly. You have the USDA, Department of Agriculture, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Defense, the Department of Education, Department of Energy, HHS, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Transportation, EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, NASA, and the NSF, National Science Foundation. These are the SBIR relevant agencies. When it comes to the STTR program, which I mentioned again is the sister program from SBIR, which involves partnering with research institutions, there are only 5 relevant agencies. Those are the DoD, Department of Defense, the DOE, Department of Energy, the HHS, Department of Health and Human Services, NASA, and the NSF, National Science Foundation. So there are fewer participating agencies for STTR. It's worth noting that. Okay, we've covered now the intro about SBIR. Now I'll give you a really brief summary of federal funding in general. So the total budget for 2018 is $176.8 billion. It's larger than people expected. It was supposed to be about $151 billion, and it ended up being larger. So there's a lot of money available. Again, $176.8 billion is quite a large number. Basically, if you have breakthrough technology, it's most likely the case that there's federal funding available for what you're looking to work on. And I'll take this moment to note, upcoming we'll go into the topics. If you see any topics that you think you have breakthrough technology that you could be relevant for, we believe that you should apply for these grants, and that we bring you the greatest chance of winning, and that we should be in touch and work together on them. Okay, this slide breaks down the general breakdown of what grants receive what percentage of dollars. So these are the 2 different types of grant mechanisms: SBIR and STTR versus BAA. On the bottom left corner, you see BAA. BAAs are broad agency announcements. They're usually larger grants for longer periods of time. They make up 96.4% of the total federal budget dollars going to federal grants. SBIR, which is the topic for today, and STTR, they make up a much smaller portion of the grants, only 3.2% and 0.4%. But then note that they do give out a significant amount of money, and the opportunity from the DoD that we're talking about today is pretty exciting anyway. But if you are looking to do a BAA, we do work in the BAA space, and there is more money available, so just please note that. Okay. Finally, I'll just kind of quickly explain the key term non-dilutive, which refers to federal grants not giving up any equity when you receive them. When you receive a federal grant, you don't have to return the money. It's not a loan. You receive the money and you don't have to return it. It's non-dilutive. You don't have to give up anything in return. This is different from dilutive funding or venture capital, which requires the giving up of equity, stock shares, typically, in order to receive the funding. Additionally, in non-dilutive funding, there's no interference from board members or advisors. You don't have to bring anyone else on board, and all IP rights are maintained, whereas in VC you might have to give up IP. Okay, so that ends our introduction to SBIR and federal funding in general. Now we'll dive into the topics for the DoD in human systems. Okay, so topic number 1, vision enhancement for the dismounted warrior. This is from the Army, and the topic here is Army goggles. The Army is looking for ways to enhance natural vision in protective eyewear platforms, spectacles, and or goggles with or without integrated ear protection for soldiers and Marines, and to integrate the two, namely enhance vision and eye protection together. The goal is to enhance natural eyesight to aid in visual detection, identification, and acquisition of targets, friendlies, and other items of interest that would otherwise be obscured or difficult to see in military relevant environments with the unaided eye. Topic number 2, smart hearing protection for the mounted and dismounted warrior. This is also from the Army. The topic here is hearing devices. The objective of this SBIR effort is to research and develop novel means to better provide verbal, face-to-face communication ability and hearing protection to soldiers operating in the presence of loud continuous noise, such as that generated by noisy vehicles, watercraft, fixed wing and rotary wing aircraft, etc., and impulse noise such as small arms fire. Okay, topic number 3, biomimetic human exoskeleton interface. This is again from the Army. The topic here is robotics. This calls for an interface that can safely join an exoskeleton to a human being. The key point here is on the creation of the interface, not the actual exoskeleton. The hope is to create an interface that lightens the burden of exoskeletons on the body. Please note there are other opportunities for exoskeletons, and this opportunity seems to involve exoskeleton design, but the emphasis really is on the interface between the exoskeleton and the body. Topic number 4, manned-unmanned teaming. This is through the Air Force. The topic here is unmanned military systems. They're looking to develop innovative systems or prototypes that help humans effectively interact with a mixed team of manned and unmanned systems to solve problems. To solve the problem of degraded communication environments between humans and unmanned systems. Now, room is given for creativity in this call, as the topic calls for a prototype system determined to be the most feasible solution to the problem, whatever that is determined to be. So there's room for creativity in terms of solving the problem. Topic number 5, innovative training solutions, for example, AR, VR, and MR. This is through the Air Force. The topic here is military training, possibly using virtual reality. Develop innovative systems or prototypes that will be able to complement or supplement training for Air Force members. Solutions can range from being very broad to being very specific, or somewhere in between. It's not required that all the aspects, types of training, or measures are addressed in one solution. So it's kind of an overall call for people to try to address the problem. There's no specific, very niche requirement, and it's encouraged to, again, to use your creativity to come up with something that will help people to train the Air Force and the military. Topic number 6, personal display that eliminates visual eavesdropping. This is through the Air Force. The topic here is a device that relays confidential information. I like this one. It kind of reminds me of a Mission Impossible type gadget. The idea is to develop a device that, 1, positively identifies a person, and then 2, provides information that only that person can see in order to relay confidential information to the viewer only. Again, it's like I said, really similar to a Mission Impossible type gadget that the Air Force is calling for here. The device must be inoperable by unauthorized individuals and free of visual eavesdropping, meaning no one else can see it. To elaborate, this would be a your eyes only project that integrates a projection system that both eliminates visual eavesdropping, which might involve direct retinal projection, to solve the problem, and simultaneously has a biometric identification system, which, for instance, might involve ocular scanning. So it's a pretty cool gadget they're looking for here. Topic number 7, wide area monitoring and alerting visualization for real-time ISR sensemaking and situational awareness. This is through the Air Force. The topic here is surveillance data fusion. So to explain a little bit of background, big data generated by modern surveillance collection methods are often beyond the capacity of individual analysts or analyst teams to comprehensively monitor or make sense of. This topic calls for the development of wide area monitoring display concepts that mitigate limitations of contemporary data visualization and fusion techniques. The idea is to design analysis-focused displays that enhance the prioritization, triage, and sense-making activities required to establish and maintain situational awareness at scale for wide area monitoring focused missions. Topic number 8, technology to assist with lifting, moving, and holding 0 to 40 pounds. This is pretty straightforward. It's from the Air Force. The topic is robotics here, presumably. The aerospace sustainment community has a need to augment the human body's ability to lift, hold, and move objects while keeping the natural range of motion. Topic number 9, very similar to number 8, technology to assist with lifting, moving, and holding 0 to 300 pounds this time. Again, through the Air Force, the topic again is robotics, presumably. Again, the idea here is to augment the human body's ability to lift, hold objects while keeping the natural range of motion for objects, this time that weigh up to 300 pounds. Please note, as of now, this is usually accomplished by cranes. The Air Force is looking to replace the use of cranes, which are often inoperable in heavy winds. Finally, topic number 10, globally integrated wargaming. This is through U.S. SOCOM, or U.S. Special Operations Command. The topic here is war games. The language used is to determine what is in the art of the possible, according to the call, to improve wargaming strategies, perhaps by using big data analytic tools, machine learning, deep learning, computer vision, and pattern recognition. The topic calls for computationally efficient methods for displaying a large number of emerging sensor feeds into a dynamic environment for exercises and wargaming that supports experimentation and mission preparation via globally distributed command and control. It also suggests improvements in the field of social media, the Internet of Things, including mobile sensors and emerging video and 3D image processing from small unmanned aerial systems and satellite sensors. Again, please note these are just suggested ideas. All ideas in the realm of the possible are encouraged to solve the problem. These are the suggestions that the DoD thinks are most likely to help solve the problem. Okay, that wraps up the 10 topics for today. I'll give you a little background on Eagle Point Funding, and then we'll end the webinar in a few minutes. So Eagle Point Funding, we're an international consulting firm specializing in non-dilutive funding, biggest of its kind in the world. We were established in 1999. We have 70 plus full-time employees and 250 plus active clients. Please also note that we're affiliated with the Free Mind Group. We're the sister organization of Free Mind Consulting. A little bit about our strategies. We use a multi-submission strategy, which means we recommend people apply for multiple grants at a time in order to increase their chances of winning. We have over $1.5 billion awarded to date, roughly $70 million annually, and we're a success-oriented business model, and we charge a success fee to work with us. Also, again, I'll use this opportunity to mention, if in listening to this webinar, you noticed any topics that you thought were relevant for technology that you believe is breakthrough that you have, we encourage you to apply, and we think that your best chances are by working with us, and we'd be happy to be in touch to try to work together. Okay, this is the last slide before we open the Q&A and end. This just is an overview of what we'd be proposing to work with you on as a fee. for this specific DoD SBIR STTR award. Our cost would be to charge you $5,000 for Phase 1 with a success fee of 5%. And then similarly for Phase 2 also, it would be $5,000 with a success fee of 5%. Okay, so now we'll open up a little bit to Q&A. At this point, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in and ask them, and I'll try to address them as easily as possible. In the meantime, if there are no questions, I have two prepared that I can ask, and feel free to ask in the meantime if anything comes to mind while I ask my questions. So kind of to review, two simple questions I'll start off with are, what's the difference for anyone who isn't clear on it, just to review the earlier part of the webinar, what's the difference between SBIR and STTR? SBIR, again, is Small Business Innovation Research. It's the small business grant that involves just the small business itself. STTR is a sister program from SBIR, and it involves partnering with a research institution or university. So those are two very important words in the federal grant world that you should know about, and you should understand the differences, especially if you're thinking about applying. Perhaps you wanted to partner with a research institution. The SBIR program, Small Business Innovation Research, that doesn't involve the research institution is much larger. Okay, no questions so far from the audience, but I'll ask one more question. Do I have any advice from moving from Phase 1 to Phase 2 in SBIR STTR? So I think there's one major point to explain that a lot of these calls from federal agencies explain, which is that for Phase 1, you're looking at feasibility. There's no expectation that you have a prototype in place, and a lot of it is for research purposes. Phase 2, on the other hand, assumes that you've developed some type of prototype by the end of Phase 1. It's a huge difference. So it's interesting to note that for Phase 1, you really don't need to have a prototype necessarily in place. What you really need to have is an ambitious breakthrough goal or technology, and you need to pursue that goal with intensive research, presumably developing an adequate prototype by the end of your Phase 1 that would lead you to win a Phase 2 when you apply, because you've established at that point a prototype. Okay, so I don't have any other questions from the audience. So with that, we'll move forward and end the webinar. Thank you very much, everyone. If you'd like to make a time to chat with us, this is my contact information. Here's my phone number and my email address. Feel free to reach out anytime. We're happy to talk with anyone who has anything relevant that they'd like to discuss in terms of applying for federal grants. Thank you very much and have a good one. Bye-bye.